So Occupy Wall Street got a lot of criticism for not having a solid message, although anyone who paid any attention did realize that they did have a message. They were not in favor of income inequality, they were not in favor of wealth inequality, and they knew that we have crony capitalism here in the country. Well, even though people are trying to discredit them and discount them, even today, Occupy Wall Street is doing some pretty amazing things. In fact, Occupy as a whole, not just Occupy Wall Street, has an initiative that they refer to as the Strike Debt Initiative. And they did something pretty amazing. So they were actually able to purchase student loan debts from debt collectors, and then they dismissed the debts. So let me tell you exactly how it worked. This is according to CNN Money. It said it has been buying the debts for pennies on the dollar from debt collectors and then simply forgiving that money rather than trying to collect it. In total, the group spent a little more than $100,000 to purchase $3.8 million in debt. Now, these are students who had private loans and they had defaulted, right? And so all of a sudden, Occupy comes in and they're like, hey, debt collectors, we'll purchase that debt from you and then we'll try to collect ourselves. But they didn't collect, they dismissed the loans. Now, there's another little twist to this story that makes it extra special for me. This debt Occupy bought belonged to 2,700 people who had taken out private student loans to attend Everest College, which is run by Corinthian colleges. Understand that those are for-profit colleges that have been investigated and are currently being investigated for doing unlawful recruiting techniques, telling people that they're gonna get certain things by getting that degree, and then it turns out that later on, they don't really get much from getting that degree. They usually don't have gainful employment, and they usually take out all of these loans and they're drowning in debt, and as a result, they're screwed. They don't know what to do. They're unable to find jobs. So I love this. I love that Occupy protesters took on this very serious issue of student loan debt, and they focused specifically on for-profit colleges.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if you had gone to that school and defaulted. Like, not only do you lose the money, but the feeling that you must have that you tried this out. Like, a lot of these people are not 19; they're older. They're like in their late 20s and things like that. So you go through this massive financial tragedy, and for them to swoop in, and for a lot of these people, they might not even have had a great opinion of Occupy.
Right.
And for them to have saved the day and set them free financially, even if they didn't forgive all of their debt, anything that they forgave is going to provide a massive benefit to their future.
Absolutely, there's no question about it. And some people are going to kind of like poo-poo on this and say like, oh, well, you know, I know that's not the best phrase to use, but whatever.
That's what it means. That's the perfectly appropriate phrase. That's exactly what it means.
But the reality is, look, this is $3.8 million of student loan debt. You can't go after public student loans because they're federally backed. So you can only really go after private student loans. And these are students who really, really needed the help, right? Now keep in mind that student loan debt in the country is $1.2 trillion. So it's a massive problem. But for them to come in and try to do something and be proactive about it makes me really happy. Now let me give you some more details when it comes to Everest College. The company was hit with a lawsuit from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau over allegations of predatory lending practices. The lawsuit demanded that Corinthian forgive the more than $500 million in outstanding student loan debt that its students had incurred since 2011 through Corinthian's Genesis loan program. So let me give you an example as to why they're being investigated, why they're dealing with so many lawsuits. So for instance, let's say that Everest College had a chef program, right? You go to school there, you learn how to be a chef, and then you're supposed to be gainfully employed afterwards. You take out all these loans, but it's gonna be worth it. What they do in the recruiting practices is they'll show the students statistics that makes it seem as though gainful employment is likely with that degree. But they'll include things like flipping burgers at McDonald's as gainful employment. So you take out tens of thousands of dollars in loans, and then later on you find out that they consider minimum wage job at McDonald's gainful employment.
Yeah, it's pretty awful that like people will graduate in the first few years from the program, and then they'll be so much in debt that they have to take any job they can get. And so, as Anna said, they work at McDonald's, and then that is then used by the college to snare more people into the program. It's a really disgusting cycle. But it is great that they did this. Now, as I think most people did when they heard about this, my first thought was, God, I hope they keep doing it and they get to me eventually. But then I realized I messed up because I have both public and private loans, and in a apparently short-sighted financial responsibility move, I paid off all the private loans first because they had higher
you
interest
did?
rates. So I messed up. I can't help it.
Oh, that's fascinating.
But it's great that they did that. And I also was reading an article about the legacy of Occupy recently, and then I saw that you had seen this story about the good stuff they're continuing to do. And although, like as you said, people criticize them for not having like one mission, there has been content analyses of how often certain terms are used since Occupy like really revved up, and there was Zuccotti Park and all that, and stuff like the 99% and the 1%, and even just talking about inequality is way higher in the media than it was beforehand.
Absolutely, they changed the discourse in the country, which is really, really important. Being able to shift the focus to what is happening to the 99% was really critical, because now we're having these conversations that are so important. At the same time, what I find so admirable about Occupy is how they were able to raise $700,000 for this cause alone. And for those of you who are saying, hey, you know what, this is just a small band-aid on a really big problem, well, they're also fighting to ensure that students can renegotiate and refinance all of these loans at a lower interest rate. That way, at least it helps solve the bigger issue a little. But the reality is we need to make college more affordable for people. After the economic collapse, we cut funding for a lot of community colleges and state universities, and those were the affordable options for a lot of students. They're no longer affordable. That has really contributed to student loan debt.